Okay, so the right is doing some insane shit to, I don't know, get if they're trying to get a point across or if they've just completely lost the plot. I really have no idea. But I have two articles showing just how insane these people are. And one article which is a update to Republicans saying insane shit. So let's start with Moms for Liberty. They're always good for a laugh or a head scratch. And this is titled Moms for Liberty Chapter Chair Takes Off Clothing at School Board Meeting. Yeah, you know this is going to be an anti-trans thing. All right, let's get to it. Moms for Liberty has made a name for itself by storming local school board meetings to rail against LGBTQ plus inclusive policies, often with fury, and sometimes bizarre performances. But on September 18th, the spectacle hit a new low. I promise you, I know how to talk. At a Davis School Board meeting, Beth Bourne, president of the Yolo County Moms for Liberty chapter in California, launched into a tirade against transgender students in locker rooms and bathrooms before abruptly stripping off her top and pants. The stunt left board members stunned, forced the meeting into recess, and underscored just how unhinged the movement's tactics have become. Hi, good evening. I'm a parent in the Davis Unified School District, and I'm here today to talk to you about the policies you have in the locker rooms for students. Bourne began. Right now, we require our students to undress for PE class, and I'm just going to give you an idea of what that looks like while I address. I hope that means undress. As she spoke, she stripped off her top. She continued, so right now the school district is saying that depending on a child's transgender identity, they could pick which bathroom they want. That's very cavalier, but okay. Right now we have children self-identifying into different bathrooms. At that point, she began removing her pants, prompting groans and visible discomfort from board members and attendees. No, you cannot. We're going to recess. One member interjected as Bourne shouted about her First Amendment rights. Ugh, Jesus Christ. This was hardly Bourne's first brush with notoriety for outlandish anti-LGBTQ plus theatrics. Before I continue, let me address this. Obviously, she's making her point. The board is uncomfortable with seeing her strip. But notice that it's the entire board. It's not just certain members. And I'm looking at the board right now. And by the way, she only stripped to her bra and panties. It's not like she was butt naked. There are men on that board. So, and from what I can see of the men, they were not exactly thrilled with what was happening either. So, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that she didn't actually prove her point. All right, where'd I leave off? Because she wants to prove the point that trans people make other people uncomfortable. She's a cis woman and she's making people uncomfortable by her stripping. So, because, well, this isn't the venue for it, for one thing. People expect that you're taking off your clothes in a locker room because that's what the locker rooms are for. They're for you taking off your clothes because you're changing, whether it be into a uniform for, say, PE class or changing out of one. So she's not making the point she thinks she's making. She's just made the point that people are uncomfortable with a woman stripping in a venue not meant for that. And the fact that both men and women were uncomfortable proves that she didn't prove her point, because she wanted to prove the point that you shouldn't be undressing in the wrong locker room. But both genders were uncomfortable with her stripping. So, no, she wasn't proving any point. Or she was proving a point, just not the one she thought she was proving. Which I'm sure was completely lost on her because of her extreme hate. But let's continue. Last year, she went viral after berating drag queens in a hotel lobby in Hawaii, demanding a refund for the mere act of encountering them. Okay, so she never went to a drag show. She just encountered drag queens in a lobby, and she wanted a refund for the show that she didn't go to. Or is she demanding a refund from the hotel for the trauma of seeing drag queens? Which, if I encountered a drag queen, that would be absolutely awesome. Because those people are fierce. Those women are fierce. And yes, I am calling them women because they're drag queens. When they're out of their drag, then I will refer to them as men. Or if they prefer some other way of referring to them, but still. When they're in drag because they're queens, they are women. It's really not that hard. Okay. The clip drew a petition to oust her from her staff position at UC Davis. And this next sentence is absolutely delicious. Pure karma. The university held off, but she eventually lost the job anyway, thanks to Trump's education cuts. Ain't karma grand? Which she publicly cheered, even as she admitted they cost her her own livelihood. This is how absolutely insane these people are. They hate certain groups so much that they are willing to be forced under a bridge because they cannot support themselves just to own the libs or just to make the lives of people they hate uncomfortable. I mean, that is not sane behavior to basically say, yeah, I'm willing to have to live in a cardboard box or in my car just as long as trans people, don't get to exist. That is just so fucked up. Anyway, Bourne's crusade against LGBTQ plus rights has been deeply personal and cruel. Her own child came out to her as non-binary, a revelation that, according to them, only hardened her extremism. I mean, you gotta feel for that poor kid. I assume that, because of their mother's views, they waited till they were adults, or at least were able to financially support themselves before they came out, because, yeah, I can't see that ending well for them. I was ready to come out to everybody because I had been holding it in for a really long time, the now adult child told the Sacramento Bee. From my coming out to my moving out, her views that she expressed to me started to get more aggressive and more extreme. Oh dear, so this child came out while still a child. Not after they moved out. Ooh, yeah, that had to be rough. Despite Bourne's circus-like theatrics, Moms for Liberty's influence is no joke. In Florida, the group's launchpad, Governor Ron DeSantis has embraced their agenda wholesale, codifying everything from don't say gay style legislation to mandates that force transgender teachers to misgender themselves in their own classrooms. Which is just messed up. I wonder how many of these trans teachers completely and totally pass and the kids would never know that they were trans and were completely and utterly confused why they were misgendering themselves. One trans woman teacher was compelled to stand before her students and introduce herself as Mr., a state-sanctioned humiliation. Yet outside of Florida, especially in blue states, their policies have failed to gain traction because those governments are actually sane. That failure may explain why activists like Beth Bourne resort to ever more extreme stunts in places where their agenda doesn't stick. Spectacle becomes the only weapon left. And this is from Aaron in the Morning. I think I've heard of that one. Never looked at it, but I have heard of it. So, it's just sad that you are so willing to humiliate yourself. If your ideas actually held water, you wouldn't need to do something like what this chick has been doing. You wouldn't have to demand a refund from a hotel just because, oh, my eyes, I saw a drag queen. Or stripping down because you think you're making some sort of a point. I mean, how can you look at these antics and say, yes, that is a sane person, and the point that she's making is totally valid? The fact that she feels that she has to go to these lengths to get her point across negates the fact that she made her point, because all she did was make a bunch of people uncomfortable, and for what? I mean, granted, I saw the pictures and I've seen bikinis cover less, so there is that, but that's not the point. The point isn't whether you're comfortable with seeing her in her bra and panties. The point is that it has absolutely nothing to do with trans people. I mean, you're not in a locker room and you weren't changing for PE. You weren't changing for a sport. You were just trying to cause a scene. Because there is no way in that pickled brain of yours that you thought this was going to make your point. I mean, what exactly were you going to do? Mention that your discomfort is how people feel when they're changing for PE class? I've mentioned it many times in these videos. I felt uncomfortable changing in PE class. That had nothing to do with there being trans people in the locker room with me. There were only cis girls. That is not why I was uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable because you're a freaking teenager and teenagers are uncomfortable with their bodies. So, yeah. That is just the way, that's just growing up. Obviously, if you're an athlete, you get used to it because, well, you basically live in locker rooms. Okay, fine. Not everybody is comfortable. This is not about making sure that people are comfortable in a locker room. You're changing for Phi Ed. you are not, there are going to be people who are uncomfortable with that because PE is a requisite. It's a prerequisite. You need to take that class up until a certain level. I think it was all through high school for me. But up until a certain level, you have to take PE class. I'm not sure, so because you have to, there are going to be some people in there, boys and girls, who do not feel comfortable changing around other people. Again, it has nothing to do with, oh my God, what if someone who's trans sees me? It's just simply the way some people are. They don't feel comfortable about their bodies, or they don't feel comfortable about seeing other people's bodies. It could just simply be that, like I said, you're a teenager. You're, checking out and you're noticing that you're not as developed as others. And so that makes you uncomfortable. I mean, there's so many reasons why you can be uncomfortable that has nothing to do with a trans person being in the locker room. I just do not know how many times I have to tell people that discomfort is not an excuse why you should attack trans people. Discomfort is something that we all have to deal with at some point. It could be a locker room. It could be speaking in public. We're going to all have a moment where we are uncomfortable. That is not a reason to ban whatever makes us uncomfortable, because we would have to ban a lot of shit otherwise. Discomfort is not an excuse. I would not have gotten far demanding that I have a private changing room because I'm not comfortable changing in front of others. Because as far as I would know, everybody else was just as uncomfortable as me. I don't know. Because I wasn't exactly, staring at people's faces to see if they're uncomfortable, or if they were looking around like I was. No, I wasn't paying attention to that. I mean, because I was uncomfortable. Why would I? So, yeah. Discomfort, not an excuse. And again, she is cis. Changing in front of what I can only imagine are other cis people in the board. Some male, some female. And each and every one of them were uncomfortable. So what exactly was she succeeding in making a point of? Okay, that chick changing in a boardroom, stripping her clothes in a boardroom makes everyone uncomfortable. Okay? And we're not talking about stripping in a boardroom. We're talking about changing in a locker room where you're supposed to be changing clothes. Anyway. So, yeah, that is insanity number 1. That's the most insane article. All right. Now, the next is less insane, but still insane. So, you've probably heard of the log cabin Republicans, and people want to, give them the benefit of the doubt that they're trying to get Republicans to be more accepting of the LGBT plus community by being a Republican, by trying to get them to change from the inside. Well, this is going to disabuse you of that notion. Gay Republican group invited by Ric Grenell heckled and booed musician Yasmin Williams at Kennedy Center. Because, again, that is what sane, well-adjusted people do. Log Cabin Republicans heckled guitarist Yasmin Williams after her performance at the Kennedy Center. She said it's because Ric Grenell, the President Donald Trump tapped executive director, invited them to boo her politics. And I don't know if this article mentions it. Actually, I would be shocked if it didn't, because that's what these articles do. Ric Grenell is also gay. I'm certain that these folks have no interest in my music at all, or art itself. So why would they come? Williams posted on Facebook. All right. The answer became clear, she said, when she saw a weekly newsletter sent out by the Washington, D.C. chapter of the Log Cabin Republicans. It showed the chapter's monthly meeting had been moved to the rooftop terrace of the Kennedy Center. It mentioned a special performance at the Hall of States. The artist, liberal guitarist Yasmin Williams, will be giving a free performance prior to the meeting, the newsletter states. She is apparently a vocal critic of President Trump and the Kennedy Center's decision to hold a vigil for Charlie Kirk. Let's make sure the audience is filled with patriots. There are no comments about Turning Point USA founder Kirk's September 10th death visible on Williams' social media. She told the Washington Post she shared a post about a vigil being held at the Kennedy Center for Kirk, but offered no commentary. She addressed some controversy among her own fans earlier this September on why she would even perform at the Kennedy Center under Grenell's tenure, and said she wanted to support the union workers still working at the venue and fighting to maintain the institution's integrity. She addressed that at the close of her show from the stage before having to be escorted out by security. I mean, that's just absolutely bonkers that these people have absolutely nothing better to do than to boo an artist simply because she's critical of Trump. I mean, why pay good money to do that? It just is insane. This ranks up there with people like Kid Rock shooting the crap out of a Bud Light can because they had a trans woman as a spokesperson. And this is stuff that you already paid for. Why are you literally shooting up your money? This makes zero sense to me. Shout out to the good people who are still here. Shout out to the people who got fired and lost their jobs unnecessarily, she said on stage. Shout out to every good person here who wants to hear live music and have good artists still here at the Kennedy Center. Huge fuck you to Ric Grenell. Fuck you to Trump. Ric Grenell, you suck. I'm not a fan. Now, I said the whole word, but this was a quote, so I think she actually did just say F you. But still. She said Grenell set aside 50 tickets for people to boo the show, but her supporters outnumbered critics at the show. She was particularly struck by the Log Cabin Republicans' email, which promoted an open bar to attract hecklers. Because nothing says rowdy like an open bar, because you're going to make a bunch of drunks real quick. And I should know, my brother, when he got married, had an open bar. So, yeah. The staff who were working my show had no idea of this until right before the show started, she wrote. This is why I had to get escorted out of the building by several security guards. This is clearly a calculated attempt to intimidate and harass me at my own show, as well as the staff working the show. This is completely unacceptable, and I will not allow this to go unnoticed. I will not be harassed and intimidated by anyone, especially these folks. Good for her. Before the show, Williams publicly shared a series of emails with Grenell that came after she emailed him with questions about the center's operation after several artists said they would not perform at the center and said his responses were absolutely insane. Blah, blah, blah. After asking if Williams would boycott shows because Republicans were in attendance, he wrote to the artist and said, among other unprompted rants, that changes were happening at the venue because the programs are so woke that they haven't made money. Sure. All right, which is just echoing what Trump said. Okay, so final article, which, like I said, is an update to an insane thing a Republican said earlier. Pete Buttigieg responds to Tucker Carlson's very specific questions about gay sex on Kara Swisher's podcast. And the face palming that he's doing in the pictures. He's just like, I can't do this. Pete Buttigieg has never been shy about confronting absurd attacks on his identity. But when the former transportation secretary sat down with journalist Kara Swisher for a live recording of On with Kara Swisher at the University of Michigan, he faced one of the strangest yet. Tucker Carlson's claim that Buttigieg is a fake gay. And I did a video on the article previously about why he thinks he's a fake gay. Swisher, leaning into the controversy with her trademark wit, teased Buttigieg in the episode released Tuesday by saying she was starting to agree with Tucker Carlson on this fake gay thing when he didn't know the significance of a meme Swisher said was popular among gay men. Buttigieg, unflappable, laughed and replied, "Chasten, my husband, has threatened to have my gay card revoked so many times. This is just going to be the latest." And I have to admit, there are ace memes that I would be completely clueless about. That doesn't make me any less ace. No, not at all. Later, Swisher, a lesbian, which until this article did not know that, pressed Buttigieg on Carlson's suggestions that he should be forced to answer very specific questions about gay sex. Buttigieg responded by pointing out the high level of cringeworthiness. First of all, I do not think I want to discuss anything with Tucker Carlson, Buttigieg said. I cannot think of a topic I would like to discuss less. He stopped himself after starting to say, even though I will admit some level of morbid curiosity on what in the hell he thinks, actually no. And that's my feelings too. What does he think gay sex entails? That he thinks that he could play gotcha with Pete Buttigieg or any gay person on how gay sex works. Because he claims that he has a gay producer, which he literally did say, which, given what he claimed his producer would tell him, either his producer is just playing him and just giving him extra ammo to look stupid, or he totally made up the fact that he has a gay producer. Because some of the things that person claims about what gay people do, just, I'm sorry, what? Anyway, the audience laughed. Then Buttigieg added, I suppose it's a sign of progress that their idea of a conspiracy is that I'm actually secretly straight. Not sure what he means by that's a sign of progress. I really have no clue. He and Chasten Glesman Buttigieg, 36, were married in June 2018 when Pete, 43, was the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, before launching his presidential campaign. In 2021, the couple announced the birth of their twins, Penelope Rose and Joseph Gus August, via adoption. The husbands are raising their 4-year-old children in Michigan. And I still remember the hate he got with that about, oh, he's going to wear a strap on so he can breastfeed the kids, or for Justin's like, what? I mean, I guess you're trying to be funny. I'm not sure, given the hatred for gay people, and especially Pete Buttigieg on the right, I don't know if that was meant to be funny or if they honestly thought that was a thing. But anyway, the conversation included more substantive topics. Buttigieg reiterated his condemnation for the recent assassination of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk in Utah, insisting that the only sane place to begin is acknowledging the tragedy of a family losing a father. Yet he warned that President Donald Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance have exploited the killing to stoke anger and justify repression. Exactly. I mean, they want to go after anyone on the left. Trump has designated Antifa as a terrorist organization, where it's not an organization at all. It's just people who are against fascism, because that's literally what Antifa stands for. Anti-fascist. So yeah, they're totally using the Charlie Kirk assassination like that. I previously did a video, not a fan of Charlie Kirk, because of, obviously, didn't think that he deserved to be killed. It is kind of karma because, well, he did say that that some gun deaths are just a trade-off for having Second Amendment rights. And, to be killed by a gun. Kind of ironic. So, plus he actually had a hit list against professors. So he wasn't as nice of a guy as people are making him out to be. I mean, he was very much for free speech. That I will agree with him on. He was very much for free speech. But I wonder how much of it is because he knew that what he was saying was horrible. But anyway. So yeah, it's just, I do not condone any political violence. Part of what makes political violence a crime, not just against the target, but against the country, is that it deprives our whole country of the freedom to have open, honest, safe political debate, Buttigieg said. He cautioned that labeling opponents as terrorists echoes authoritarian tactics in places like Russia. Well, since Trump adores Putin, even though, he's also claiming that the EU should continue helping Ukraine and that Ukraine could possibly gain back all their territory because Russia's just a paper tiger. So I don't know if Trump actually believes that or if he's trying to goad NATO and all of Europe and Ukraine to do that and to get crushed like a bug. It really could go either way. But anyway, yes. I don't believe anyone on the left has referred to the right as terrorists. The right has referred to the left as terrorists, though. I mean, we've referred to the right as Nazis and fascists because if you don't want to be called a Nazi or fascist, maybe don't espouse those views and, we'd be fine. All right. Buttigieg framed the moment as a fork in the road. Either Americans resist the escalation of violence and rhetoric, or they risk sliding further into an illiberal age. Swisher also pressed Buttigieg on his earlier views that former President Joe Biden should not have run for re-election, a position echoed by former Vice President Kamala Harris, who admitted in her new memoir, 107 Days, that Buttigieg was her first choice as a running mate, but that she didn't select him over fears that the country wasn't ready to support a ticket with a black woman and a gay man. Which, fair. I mean, it sucks that that has to be considered, but at the same time, that is fair. We would have, well, actually, technically 3 minorities. 4, actually, because she's half Asian, half black. Plus, she's a woman and a gay man. So we would have minority to the 4th power. So, yeah. I can totally see that. I can understand why that pisses off the gay community. I do get that. But it wasn't just explicitly because he's gay. It's because of the likelihood that she would have gotten as far as she did, which turned out didn't get very far, but, it wasn't because she picked Tim Walz. It was a lot of other crap that didn't have much to do with her, and some of which, was self-inflicted, but it was mostly the campaign. Anyway, Buttigieg explained that while he respected Biden's decision at the time, the truth was that we had a choice between 2 candidates, 2 presidents. It was not close who should be president between those 2. And at the beginning, that might have been true, but then Biden started malfunctioning. And it was just very sad to see. Very, very sad to see. Not to mention his policy on Gaza was just ugh. Still, he conceded that Harris might have benefited from a short primary after Biden's withdrawal. With the benefit of hindsight, if we invested those 30 days, then she had been the nominee, she would have done so after consolidating the party in a competition, he said. Granted, that would have helped, because a lot of people were upset that she was kind of appointed, that she was anointed the heir apparent to Biden, so I can see that. But in the grand scheme of things, that was not the reason why she lost. Though it was a reason, that wasn't the primary reason. The podcast also highlighted Buttigieg's evolving position on Gaza, an issue that has divided Democrats and alienated younger voters. He said he supports recognition of a Palestinian state as part of a 2-state solution, but only through a negotiated agreement that ensures Israel's security. That's kind of the point of having a 2-state solution, is that both states are guaranteed security. But, everyone keeps saying, oh, Israel needs to be able to survive. Who the fuck do you think is destroying Gaza right now? It's not the Palestinians. At the same time, he did not mince words about Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's conduct. The Netanyahu government is perpetuating atrocities in Gaza, Buttigieg said, insisting that U.S. support cannot be a blank check. Exactly. And Biden said that as well, but then they kept approving more and more money for Israel's defense. It's like, you cannot claim that you want them to stop or you're going to stop giving them arms and then keep giving them arms. Not the way it works. Though Buttigieg stopped short of announcing a 2028 run, the possibility hung over the interview. Asked directly if he would run, he dodged. I don't know. Really, it's 2025. Have you lived through the last 9 months? That's long. Now, actually, that's the other reason why I'm kind of glad that Kamala Harris did not pick Pete. Because think of Tim Walz. What are the chances that he would be able to make a successful run for president after he was a part of a disastrous campaign? Like I said, most of which was the campaign's fault and not the fault of Kamala Harris or Tim Walz. Because the very things that made them popular, the campaign told them stop doing. So, yeah, not their fault, but there is that. There is that hanging over his head. So it would be very, very hard for him to mount a successful campaign. Because Pete wasn't a part of that, he doesn't have that baggage. All right. Now, granted, he does have some baggage because he was part of the Biden administration, but for the most part, his plane stayed in the air, so there is that. Actually, not for the most part. I'm not aware of any crash while he was... I mean, there were snafus. Definitely. There were snafus, but still, the plane stayed in the freaking air. However, his answers suggested that he views himself as part of a generational shift. He praised younger Democratic lawmakers such as New Jersey Senator Andy Kim and Michigan Senator Alyssa Slotkin, and urged the party to adapt to new realities in communication and coalition building. We have an opportunity to invest some things from first principles, he said. It is a bad thing that we are here. But if we do have to start over, it should be to build a different way of doing things socially, economically, politically, that actually supports your ability to live a life of your choosing and to have a good life. And that is the end of that article. So, yeah, for the most part, this is just the right wing continuing to be absolutely unhinged. I believe that is all I have for this video, and with that, I will see you guys in the next one.